Thanks for tuning in, everyone, to another episode of Let's Talk, where we meet with interesting people from various walks of life and just kind of talk about their journey, the struggles they've had, but then the great successes they've had as well. So definitely tune in. I have a great guest with me today. Before we get started, hit that subscribe button, click that bell so you can see videos when they come up. And I have with me today Scarlet Noble. Thanks for being here, Scarlet. How are you?
I'm fine. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and kind of tell everyone what it is you do and all that good stuff.
Um, my pen name is Scarlet Noble. I am a writer. I write for a website called Coffee House Writers. I also have my own blog, scarletnoble.com, because I am all about that shameless self-promotion. Um, and I'm currently writing a book that one day I do hope to get published.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope that for you too. I definitely know that's like every writer's dream is just to get a book published and
Yeah.
eventually get to the point where they
Yeah.
can do it full time. So yeah,
To
uh,
get something published.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So you said Scarlet Noble is your pen name. We don't have to discuss your real name. That's fine. But how did you come about choosing that as your pen name?
um, I want to, like, I'm a writer of fantasy. It's just kind of the genre I fell in love with. And when it comes to fantasy, I wanted something that was like, boom, this is a name of someone who writes fantasy. So I went through this list. I like basically like tore through a notebook. Um, and then I started thinking about the fantasy genre and like the one archetype that I'm really drawn to when it comes to fantasy is like the royalty, like the
Yeah,
royal, dresses and balls and
sure.
castles and all
Yeah,
that. And then it hit me. I'm like, noble. I want, noble is an archetype. And then I'm like, okay, what's the first name? And I started going through all these names. I went through like the actors, the actresses to like my favorite movies, like some of the characters in books I read, and then some of the characters I've created. And then I'm like, okay, maybe I shouldn't call myself like Elizabeth because that's a character of mine. I'm like, that would be weird. And then I start hitting colors, and I'm like, Scarlet.
yeah,
It's a shade of red. And red is often associated with royalty. And I'm like,
sure.
that's it, Scarlet Noble. And I went through several different iterations before I finally settled on it because I'm like, does it sound real? Does it sound like me? And then I'm like, it's a pen name, so it can sound like whatever you want it to be, but it's me.
Yeah, I think it's great. I love it. I really like how it sounds. I think it flows very well together. I think you did a fantastic job.
Hmm.
Before we dive too deep in, for everyone out there watching, I know Scarlett has her video's a little laggy, but I'm getting the audio in crystal clear. So I this might just be one you guys set aside and just listen to and don't don't necessarily just watch.
Yeah.
But it's okay
Yeah.
because it's okay. All the content should be fantastic. And so you said you're writing a book. Are you
Hmm.
allowed to tease us a little bit of what that's about without giving too many spoilers?
Yes. I don't speak about it a bunch. Like it's not like I have an agent or anything
Sure.
yet, but like I'm very kind of protective with my book because I feel like I'm like, I want to keep this inside me because I'm like I want everyone to be surprised. But basically, I like fairies. I like Tinkerbell, and I'm like, there's not an adult fantasy out there with fairies. That's pretty much what my book is, an adult fantasy, well, probably more young adult than adults, about fairies.
Okay.
They're just not called fairies.
Sure. Uh, are the main characters fairies?
Yeah,
Okay.
basically, in essence, they're fairies, but they're not called
Sure.
fairies because I'm
Yeah.
like, fairy is kind of like a really childish term. And so I came up with like a different name. So,
Sure. That's understandable. It sounds like it could be interesting. I mean, obviously you can't give too many details, especially since you're still working on it. So
mm-hmm,
I understand that. Uh, so so you write stories on Coffee House Writers. That
mm-hmm.
kind of talk about that. How'd you get involved with that?
Basically, I go to college, and our college has this like social page thing that they have. And I heard about it through there, and I like started digging into it. I heard a bunch of people from my school were writing with coffee house writers, and I'm like, oh. maybe I could get into it. And so I applied to it. You have to apply.
Okay.
And then they called me and they're like, oh, hey, what times can you like publish stuff? I publish bi-weekly. And basically I got accepted. I got an editor and I write, and then it's published bi-weekly. I'm always freaking out about it because I'm like, oh my gosh, is this story good? you know it's honestly one of the best experiences.
Oh, you still there? I lost your audio. You still there? I don't know what happened. It's okay. I don't know what happened. I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, what happened?
I hit the button on my headphones. I am so sorry.
It's okay. We've all
I
done
didn't
that.
realize that.
We've all done that.
Okay.
Yeah, so you said you got an editor and you publish bi-weekly.
Yes, and like it's helped me to learn a lot about how much I stress about the things I write. I'm like constantly doubting like this plot hole or this plot hole or this plot line, like is this character okay? And then I'm like, I have an editor for this.
Yeah, that's helpful. It's definitely helpful.
Yeah, it's like.
So what do you do when that doubt comes up? Like, I mean, other than say, hey, I have an editor that can worry about fixing it. But
Yeah.
But what are you doing on your side where you're like, hey, I want to. You obviously want to fix it as well. So how are you battling
so
that?
typically what happens is I'm like in the middle of writing a story, and I normally write about a week before I'm supposed to submit that story to my editor.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically I just like I take a step back and I ignore it. Like it's one of those problems. They say you can't run away from your problems, and that's certainly true, but you can. You can for a while. And that's basically what I do. I run away from the problem for a while. I get away from it. I typically like drown myself in like books and video games and concern myself with other matters, and then I'll return to that story, and the doubt will still be there, but it'll just kind of be like that little whisper in the back of my mind. I'll be like that I can like easily ignore, especially since I listen to music when I write. So
Okay, I understand that. So you take a step back, distract yourself, and then you come back with fresh eyes and look at it, and then you figure out how to fix it.
Yes.
Okay.
And typically the problem is it's not that it needs fixing, it's that I need to stop telling myself it needs fixing.
Oh, I see.
So.
I see. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It's like the I get this. I always hear about this when it comes to authors that I follow. Imposter syndrome, where I'm like, I'm kind of doubting, is this like a story I should be writing or a story I'm writing? Like, am I writing this story or is someone else writing this story? And that's, I hate to be cliche and be like, oh, I have imposter syndrome, but I feel like I do struggle with it a little.
Sure. And I think everyone does to an extent. And everyone has that doubt, especially like if you're a creative person putting out content, you want the content to be good. And so, of course, you're going to look at it and say, is this good? Like, do other people think it's good? So, I think it's a good struggle. I think it's much worse if you don't have that inner voice and you automatically think everything you put out is fantastic. That's much worse. Because at least that inner voice, like, you can work on making stuff better. Like, like you have that thought where you're like, okay, let me look at this realistically and how do I improve it? So I think that's good. I think that's good. So when you're working with your editor, what's it like? I mean, are they shooting back at you like a ton of notes and then you look at them? What's that process like?
Typically, I'll submit the story, and then about like 2-3 days after, they'll send me. Well, right now they're sending me the docx, the file through like a DM. they'll send me that file and then I'll go through it. Like typically my editor doesn't really comment on like the story elements unless I specifically ask about it. They're more about the grammar aspect of
Okay.
it. And so that's also really helpful. Like if I think that like there's a certain element of the story that I'm like, hey, can you check this out? Maybe is it good? Then typically they will do that, but mostly it's just focused on like the grammar, making sure all the sentences flow right.
Okay.
So and it also kind of depends on the editor too. I've had like an editor that will comment like, hey, this sounds good, but could you maybe expand on this a little bit?
Okay.
It's so.
So when you get that document back, do the edits sting at all? Like emotionally, or are you just like,
No.
oh, you're just like, I'm trying to make this better?
No. No, I've learned I have a love of using commas and having an editor that will say, you don't have to use a comma in every sentence is a very nice experience because I'm like, yeah, I love commas, but like, you don't need them in every sentence.
Yeah, especially like I feel like modern fantasy is very very much a lot of commas. It's good. I mean, I love modern fantasy. I love it, but I totally understand that. I've had some people read something like, "Yeah, you don't need a comma here," and I'm like, "But," and they're like, "No, just take it out." So I totally understand that. So you said you had to apply to do it. Did you have to like submit a piece of work to let them review it? Like, what was that process like?
I don't remember submitting a piece of work. I just remember I went to the website, I hit apply, I filled out like my name, I gave them an email address, and then they said, tell us about yourself, pretty much. Tell us like what you write.
Sure.
I believe there was even a question about whether you submit weekly or bi-weekly, although they will again ask you that later. And yeah, basically you just tell them your name, you tell them, your address, and then you also, I believe since they call you later on, you also give a phone number.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Basically you just, so that's what I did, is just filled out my name, gave them my phone number and email address, told them a little bit about, what I like to write, and I informed them that I would prefer going by a pen name, so I'm glad they accepted me.
Yeah, me too. It sounds wonderful. A definitely great opportunity for you. When you're writing a story, so you write short stories on fantasy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know some of them are ongoing stories, but for the most part, are at least a lot of your early stories, were they like just standalone stories?
Yeah, some of them were standalone. Some of them I was like chasing an idea in my head. Some of them, if you go back through my works, you'll see like a couple part ones, and like I did write a 3-part series. So, like when it comes to Coffee House, I don't have to like necessarily do a series. I have done a lot of standalones.
Mm-hmm.
I chase like whatever's in my head when I'm writing, but for the most part, I'm trying to like balance between doing series and standalones.
What's that balance like? Is that tough? Or do you just say like, this week I'm doing this next week I'm doing that?
Honestly, it just kind of depends on how I feel. Like this week I'm doing part 4. Last week I did a standalone because I just wasn't feeling like adding another part to that particular series. I was just like, yeah, I just don't want to do that right now. So I wrote a little short piece called Escapism. It's basically, it was me picturing how someone, like 2 kids, would escape from their life. like a life that maybe is not the best. So I don't know where that piece came from. It just kind of happened.
Okay. So your other pieces, are they coming from interesting things you read? Is it just ideas that pop into your head? Where do you get your ideas?
Yeah,
Which is
actually,
like the question no writer ever wants, is where do you get your ideas? But obviously you're putting out a lot of different ideas.
Oh no, I love this. I love this question, but largely I get them as like a random thought that pops into my head or a dream.
Okay.
The particular series I'm working on right now, I had the ending come to me in a dream. I had like the idea of like what happens at the very end. Like I was sleeping, as you do when you dream.
Yep.
And I had this like storyline in my head, but it wasn't a complete storyline. It was just an ending. And there was like these two characters, there was like romance and all, and I'm like, okay, so where's the beginning? Where's the middle? And then suddenly I'm like, I need to write this. I need to figure out how I get to the end. Because this is the end.
Right.
And I need to write it, or,
So
I need to make my dream happen.
yeah. Did you outline that story? So did you outline it in a
No.
Okay. You just said
No.
I got to get here. And,
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of worked it backwards, but you didn't outline it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I had the dream in my mind, and I just kind of like I said, okay, so here's this idea of how, I laid out an idea. I'm like, okay, so this is maybe how we find ourselves at point A. This is how we find ourselves at point B, and then, as it goes along, I'll probably change a few things. I might say, okay, so maybe point D can be like point Z. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. That makes sense. How many parts is this story going to be?
I don't know.
Okay.
To be determined.
Okay.
Until I reach the end.
Okay. What's the title of it?
It's called the Shadowfield Chronicles.
Okay. And the parts are coming up sporadically on the blog.
Yes. Yes.
And Coffee House Writers?
On Coffee House.
Coffee House. Okay.
The links are posted to my blog. Like on my blog, I have like my blog page, and then I have like all the work websites I've submitted to.
Mm-hmm.
And then basically if you go to like that tab on my website, all the links will be posted there. That way if someone says, oh, hey, I'm having trouble finding your stories and stuff, I said, okay, just go here.
Okay. Yeah, that makes things easy. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously you've written a bunch of different ideas, a bunch of different stories, and I don't want to ask you which one's your favorite because I feel like that's difficult to answer because it's always the one I'm working on now because that's the one you're most excited about. But which one do you think you enjoyed writing the most? Not necessarily which one's your favorite. Which one do you think writing it was more enjoyable?
Honestly, I would have to say Escapism, that short story I mentioned earlier about the two kids that like are escaping from their lives. It like the idea of it is that basically at night on like 3 days a week they wait till their mom goes to sleep, they sneak out, and then they play a game of what is essentially Dungeons and Dragons, but I don't name it. Like it's they have their entire fantasy that they start in this particular story. They're 2 knights going after a captured princess. Princess locked in a tower. So it was kind of a thrill to write because I'm like, because I can kind of relate to wanting to escape your life through like a game.
Sure.
In their case, it's like something that's equivalent to Dungeons and Dragons. In my case, it's Minecraft.
Okay. What other games are you playing besides Minecraft?
Minecraft and Sims 4 are pretty much the only games I play anymore. With writing and with school and everything, I don't really have the time to play a longer game.
Sure. That makes sense.
Like anything that's not super casual.
Sure. Yeah, I understand that. What are you majoring in school?
I'm majoring in creative writing and English with a focus in fiction.
So you are on a direct path for what you want to do.
Yes. Yes, I am. That was very much the intention.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So you have to write other pieces for school as well, correct?
Yes, for classes that I take that involve me writing fiction.
Right.
Right now I'm taking a psychology class and a sociology. They're about to be done for the term. So I don't really write, fiction for those classes, obviously, but I do write for them. So.
How are you juggling your time? Because you have to write this, you have to do all your school, you're working on a book a little bit.
Basically, so I have a lot of free times on my hands, especially now that everything is shut down and you
Yeah.
can't go out and do things. Um, I don't have a boyfriend or anything like that, so I don't have much to occupy my time. So I got tons of free time. It's just a matter of me sitting down and say, "Hey, I'm going to do this task for this amount of time." I do have a job, so
Okay.
I work that job. I come home, maybe I take a nap, and then I get up and I say, "Okay, I need to do schoolwork for like 3 hours," and then after that, I write for like about an hour or two a day if I can. I
Okay.
don't always get a chance to do that because I come home from work tired and, I have schoolwork to do. And often I'm just like, yeah, I can't write today. But, it's just a matter of being able to put myself in the mindset and say, hey, you need to do this. So
Sure.
I don't have a set schedule. I just have hey, I work from this time to this time. And then after I get home, I need to do this.
Okay. I can understand that. It definitely seems like there's a lot of drive there. Like you want to do this. Like you want to write.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes.
has working directly with an editor, because obviously you're working with an editor a lot more frequently than other people do. Um, how has that helped shape your writing? Do you find yourself writing better first drafts?
Yes, I do definitely do feel like I write a better first draft now. My editor did kind of clue me into things that are an issue, like the my tense and my usage of commas. Obviously, I'm kind of more aware of how many commas I'm using. I still seem to love using commas. I don't think I can get over that because I'm like, oh hey, this sounds like there needs to be a comma here.
Yeah.
Let me just put a comma here. And
Yeah.
my editor very clearly says, please don't put a comma here. And I do feel like I write better, especially since now that I've gotten, a kind of an editor on my computer. Like I downloaded Hemingway, and I also have a subscription to Ginger, which is kind of like an online editor.
Okay.
Um, so I do kind of run those through that, and then my actual editor looks at it.
Okay. How many drafts of these stories are you doing before you put them up?
Typically two, just two. It's
Okay.
I'll write like one draft before I submit it, and then I'll look over it, change a few things, and then I'll submit it to my editor. So, and then I guess technically three, but I don't really write the third draft because my editor goes through and edits it, and she has full authorization to add or delete things.
Okay.
Typically commas.
Okay. Do you have a word goal that you're trying to do on these? Like, do they have to be so long, or
No.
is it just you just write as long as you
They
want?
have to be at least 500 words, I believe.
Okay.
So I do try to shoot for at least 500 words. And when it comes to like me writing, I can't write like less than 300 words. I have to sit down and write like 1,000 words on why this character seems to be a really cool dude.
Okay. You do that on the side, and then write the story.
Yes.
Do you have documents for like the world building and the character building that you're doing for all these stories?
So as I mentioned, I do have a subscription to Word, but I use Google Docs for
Yeah.
that because it's on my phone, so I can like as I'm writing, I can pull up the document and I
Sure.
can just like scroll through on it and say, okay, so this character has like blue or green eyes or whatever color I randomly decided, and I can say, okay, so let's put this in the story.
You have to have a lot of documents going on right now.
Yeah. Sometimes I go through and like delete them because I'm like after I write the story, I don't feel like I need them anymore, so they get kind of deleted. So
Okay.
I think I have like about 5 right now.
Okay. That's that's not that bad. It seems like you're. I mean, you have to be fairly organized for what you're doing.
Yes.
Were you organized before? I don't mean that.
No.
Okay.
No, I was not.
So this forced
I
forced
still
that.
think I'm not organized.
Um, you said you listen to music when you write. What are you listening to?
Um, I would like to say that I listen to a lot of top 40s. Some of my favorite artists are Taylor Swift, Halsey. I really love the band Bastille. Um, it's pretty much like a mix of like rock, pop, and maybe like a few indies thrown in there.
Sure.
I kind of listen to whatever I feel like I like to listen to, which typically ends up being like pop and songs that like have this like really aggressive beat. Like I don't like listening to things that are sad. I don't like listening to anything that like doesn't have some kind of like story behind it. Like for example, a lot of Taylor Swift songs have this like story with
Right.
them. Like her song Lover talks about, her being in love with a guy. Her entire album, Lover, is about love.
Right.
And I like listening to that have some kind of meaning to them that I can like take apart and dissect.
The words don't distract you when you're singing, like the lyrics don't.
No,
Wow.
no.
That's
Yeah, I don't know how that happens either.
Yeah.
It just plays in the background.
Yeah, most authors I listen to, the lyrics distract them because they distract me. Like when I sit down to write, like it's got to be instrumental because the music, like the lyrics, will mess me up. And that doesn't happen to you?
No, I don't know how, but it just doesn't.
Wow, that's amazing. You listen to music while you do
I mean,
it.
I guess part
You go ahead.
yes. Um, I guess part of the reason is that like I get so focused on a story or on writing that like I just kind of zone out, or like the fact that I buy all my music, and so I own like I think my library has almost 200 songs, and I've listened to all of them, so I've heard them all before, so I don't really need to listen to anything new. So I find like the only like stuff that distracts me is when something is new to me.
Mm,
So I never listen to albums that have just come out when I start writing. I listen to albums and stuff I've already heard.
okay, that makes sense. Are you listening to music while you do like your schoolwork as well?
Mm, that's kind of like a in and out thing. It's because sometimes it does distract me. Sometimes it doesn't. It's kind of depends.
Okay. Um. So at the end of the day, do you have trouble turning your brain off?
Yes, I do.
What do you do to do
I,
that?
right now I take like melatonin to like
Okay.
kind of chill out. It does help, and then I tell myself, "Hey, get off your phone. Don't turn on your laptop. Do not, stay in bed." I tell myself, "Just keep your eyes closed, stay in bed." And that's how I fall asleep at night.
Does that work for you?
Yes.
That's so
It's
interesting.
like at first it was a struggle, but now it's getting a lot easier, especially since, as I mentioned, I take like melatonin whenever I
Sure.
feel like I can't really sleep. And I don't know if it's a placebo or if the stuff is actually working, but it seems to have helped.
That's very interesting. I watch like TV shows that I've seen a whole bunch. So like The Office
Hmm.
or like Brooklyn Nine-Nine or something like that, to where like I can enjoy the story, but like it's relaxing because I've seen it so many times that like I don't have to worry about what's going on in the story, and I found that um, relaxing for me. I mean, if you just telling yourself no, go to sleep works, then just keep doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so you're putting out a decent amount of content every other week. Is that is there a struggle there? Like, is it hard to write that
Mm.
much? I mean, I know right now you said we're in the pandemic, so you have nothing but time to write. But in other situations, if everything was normal, is that challenging for you, or do you just write so much already?
Yeah, before the pandemic, I definitely felt like there was that struggle, and there would be some weeks where I'm like, we can ask for like extensions, and so I'm like, hey, can I submit like on a different day? And they're like, my editor, she's really amazing about this. She's like, yeah, you can submit. Or like maybe I felt like one month I'm like, I feel really overwhelmed right now because I was taking a particularly difficult class. I'm like, can I take like 2 weeks off? And my editor was like, yeah, sure. I'm like, okay, thank you. I'm
Wow.
like, I never hesitate to say, hey, I need to submit later, or hey, I need a break.
Yeah.
Because while I love to write, I also love being, healthy, like
Sure.
mentally
Right.
healthy.
Right. And surely they also understand like you're a student, right?
Mhm.
Like you will have finals to take, so I'm sure you need to study for those.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, uh, all right. Is everyone on Coffee House Writers part of your school, or is it just like this big network?
No, like I think I can count like 3 people I know of that's in the school. I think there's like one person or two that's graduated, but for the most part, no, not everyone's from my university. There's just a lot of them because that's probably how we found out about it.
Sure. Are you guys talking to each other? Like everyone else who's like on
Mm,
it, like
I,
are you fairly active, or you guys just kind of do your own
like
thing?
we I don't really talk to a lot of people. I know they talk to each other. I'm a kind of busy with like other things in my life, so maybe I'll like reply like when they talk about like their dog or whatever. I'm like, oh, your dog's so cute. I know I do follow quite a few of them on Twitter or whatever, so
Sure.
we do interact there. But for the most part, I don't interact with a lot of people. But each person's different.
Sure. Are you more of an introvert?
Yes, very much.
So
I just want to like my dream is life is to like make enough money that I can like buy a library with like an apartment above it, and that way I can just like read books and just fill my time by like reading books. I just want to read books and write.
yeah,
But I also need to make money, so.
yeah, you do need to make money, and like if you become a successful author, like people will want to meet you, so you'll have to like go do that.
Mhm.
I don't mean to put
Yeah.
any stress on you, but people will want to meet you.
I mean, it's not as stressful. The thought isn't as stressful as it once was. If I become like a published author, I don't mind meeting people. Especially since they'll probably be fans, or they'll probably, it'll be like in a professional thing. Like
Right.
maybe I'll go to like Comic Con or whatever. Like maybe I'll go to like some convention or like an event. Like that. The thought also kind of excites me, where I get to talk about, hey, why did you write this character? Why did
Right.
why do you do all these things?
Right. When you sit down, when a new story comes to your mind, whatever it's going to be, how much world building and character development are you doing? Because these some of these are just short stories, like one-offs, right? So how deep are you building that world?
It just kind of depends on the story. Like I don't, I do have like separate documents about the characters, but never really about the world. The world just kind of comes into reality as I'm writing.
Okay.
They're with this current series I'm doing, Shadowfield Chronicles. I do have like this. I have in mind how the world is. I have like how it's broken, how it can be fixed. But in general, I don't really do all like outside of the actual writing. I don't do a whole lot of world building. The world building just kind of happens.
Okay. When when you're world building as it goes, are you taking notes of things that you're doing? So
Yes, I
okay.
do. I do take like notes, like mental notes. I'm like, okay, so there's this that I need to make a note of. It's typically for like continuity,
Right.
because I don't want my stories, I don't want to say one thing in one short story and then something completely different happen in another story that completely contradicts what I just said in that other one. So,
Are all your stories linked together? Or are they all in the same
no.
universe? Okay.
No, unless it's a series, they're not all linked.
Okay. Are you reading? So like, for people out there listening, there's also like other stuff on Coffee House Writers. They're not just like fancy stories. Like
Yeah, there's a lot of brilliant people writing a lot of brilliant things.
yeah, and one of them I saw was just like how to properly outline, how to properly like plot a story. Are you reading stuff
Oh
like that
yeah,
as
I should
well?
read that.
Yeah.
I should definitely read that. Um, I try. I'll be honest, most of the time I'm so caught up with everything I'm
Sure.
doing, I completely forget. Like right now, I know I want to read the stuff, but I'm like, I forget. I just,
Sure.
I get home from work, I'm like, why don't I read this story? And then I end up not doing that. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to make a better habit of doing that. It's kind of slow going because it's not like on the front burner of everything I have to do on a
Yeah.
daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially being in school, like you definitely have a lot to do.
Hmm.
Um, what's going to school like right now? Is it all just online?
Well, I'm an on like when I got out of high school, I was immediately an online student. The
Okay.
university I applied to is in New Hampshire. I'm in Ohio,
Okay.
so I'm an online student from the get-go. And in hindsight, that was the best decision ever. That was a really good decision on my part. So it's always been online, and if anyone out here watching this is taking online classes, my biggest advice is to just have a set schedule.
Mm.
Like if you're converting to online classes because of the pandemic, have a schedule like you normally would.
Mm.
Even get dressed to go to school. You know.
It's good advice. That's really good advice.
Hmm.
I find myself even so I'm not in school, but like just around my house, like I find myself more productive if I like get up and change clothes, even if I just change into a different pair of like sleeping pants. But they're the ones I wear around the house and I don't
Hmm.
sleep in. Like I found myself just being more productive. So I think that's really good advice. Um, so so how do you stay focused for long periods of times? Because you said you'll sit down and you'll study for 3 hours, you'll write for 2 hours. How are you staying focused that whole time?
Mm. Typically, what I do is I'll set an alarm on my phone or like a timer. I'll say, okay, I'll set a timer for 3 hours, but I'll take breaks because I don't really focus very well, but I can focus if I start something, I know I can focus on it. Typically, what I'll do is set an alarm for like 1 hour, take maybe like a 15-30 minute break, and then go for another hour,
Okay.
take another break, and then go for another hour.
Okay. I'm just thinking through that. I think that's a really good way of doing it. Because obviously, like,
Hmm.
I mean, some people can sit down for 3 hours straight, but I think the breaks.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah.
I have trouble doing that. Like
Yeah.
I even sometimes have trouble focusing for that hour I give myself. Sometimes I'll be like 30 minutes in, I'll be like, okay, I'm starting to lose focus. Maybe I take my break early.
Okay. Okay. And then you come back, and obviously you have to make up the time. But
Hmm.
okay. Okay. I understand that. Yeah. Who are some of your? So you obviously read a lot,
Hmm.
and I'm assuming you read a lot of fantasy, since you said that's what you're you're drawn to and you love.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who are some of your favorites out there? Who are some of your favorite authors?
Um, I love Shannon McGuire. I love Tara Sim. Her Timekeeper series was amazing, and like I finally got around to reading the last book. I have this problem with series where like I don't want the characters to like end. I don't want it to be
Right.
over. So I'm like, I'm not gonna read the last book. The last book does not exist. And
Yeah.
then, now that I've read the last book, I'm like, this is amazing. Neil Sussherman, I love his work, and as I mentioned, Shannon McGuire, her Mara Grant, she writes under well now she writes under two pen names. Um, her Mara Grant persona, her Newsflash series is really good. Also, her book Into the Drowning Deep. Neil Sussherman's, I find that I really loved Unwind, and I loved the Arc of the Scythe series. I actually pre-ordered the last book and then actually read it.
um, how many books would you guess you've read in your life?
I do keep track of this on Goodreads,
Oh,
and
you do?
according to Goodreads, I've read almost 200 books. So I know I've probably read more than that
Sure.
because when I was in middle school, I would check out like 3 or 4 books a week, read them, return them, and I didn't really keep track back
Right. Yeah.
then,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like every now and then I'll come across a book. I'll be like, I read that in middle school, you know?
Are you are you leaving like so you on Goodreads like you're keeping track of all that? Are you leaving like reviews and stuff for the books too?
I don't leave reviews, but I do rank them just
Okay.
so I can take advantage of Goodreads recommendation system. So
Sure. Just go leave some good reviews for those books you loved.
I don't like I have trouble writing reviews because I'm like I don't want to say I hate a book. If I don't like a book, I'm just like
No, give the
I
good
don't like
reviews.
saying.
Go
Like
give the
there's
good
tons of
reviews.
people out there that already review. I'll let them handle it. I'll just give them a rating.
Okay. All right. That's where you want to stand. I've tried to get into reviewing books lately, mainly because I'm like I know how the Amazon algorithm works, and I'm like even if I just give it like 4.5, 5 stars, I'm like this was great. It helps them out a lot.
Yeah.
But I totally understand that. So how long do you have left in college?
I graduate in 2022, so I have 2 more years.
2 years.
No, two. Well, I guess counting this year, which seems never ending, I guess I have three.
This semester's almost over though, right? Are you almost done?
Um, okay, so I'm kind of like as an online student through this university, year round I'm in school, so I get like a 1 week break every
Oh, really?
other term. So yes, so this term's almost over, and then I get a week break, I believe, and then I start another one.
So you just
So
go nonstop. I mean, other than
yeah,
your week
I
break,
actually
but
really Yeah, I like actually really like it because, when I was in high school, we had the summer vacation and I found myself getting into like lapsing into like staying up really late at night and then getting up at like 10 in the morning instead of like
mm,
5 in the morning like I would do when I go to school.
yeah, I think everyone did that. I think that was just like the
Yeah.
thing to do.
I even did that during school and and I fell asleep in my math class.
Oh, that's no good.
Yeah.
Okay, I had a question for you. What on your day off? Like if you just have a day off to relax, we'll say you're not writing, um, because I'm sure that's what you do. But in this scenario, you're not writing. You don't have school. You don't have work. What are you gonna do? What's an ideal day?
I play video games. I like load up Minecraft and like it kind of depends on like what mood I'm in. If I'm feeling like, I'm feeling zoned out, I'll just walk around, on peaceful mode and maybe I build a house, maybe I don't,
Mm.
maybe I walk like 1,000 blocks from spawn and then suddenly realize, oh yeah, I don't know where I started, and then some days I'll just go on an adventure and
Are you Do you play online with people, or you just play by yourself? Because don't you have the
I
option there?
do. I do actually have my server. I have my own server that I kind of set up so that I could play with friends because I play the Java version of Minecraft. I did start with Bedrock. By the way, for anyone out there who doesn't know, there's like several different versions of Minecraft, but pleasantly there's two. There's the Bedrock and then there's the Java. Um, both are really good versions of Minecraft, and the developers on both do really good jobs. I just mainly play Java because it's new to me. I played Bedrock for like 6 years, and then I realized Java exists, and I'm like, yeah, okay. So it's an interesting game.
Yeah. What? Yeah, it definitely is, and it's very. I mean, there's some limitations, but most of it is like very much like I think it hits the same creative part of your brain, right? Like you're like, what do I want? What do I want to
Mm-hmm.
build?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the best.
Yeah. Yeah. Um.
I,
Yeah. Go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you.
I could spend hours talking about this game. I'm gonna be honest because I love it. Like I don't even like calling it a game because of what it has come to mean to me. Like it's not only just me escaping from like my reality into this game where all I have to do is place some blocks or go into like a different game mode and suddenly the world's problems don't exist.
Sure.
And I've had this love for it. And it just turned 11 in May. Like the game is 11 years old
Wow.
and it's still going strong.
Wow. I can't believe it's 11
And,
years old.
yeah, like I could go on about it forever because it's the best.
I can't believe it's 11 years old. I remember when it came out.
hmm Yeah,
I cannot
I
believe it's been
don't,
a.
but I started on Xbox. I wish I could have been there when it first came out because I bet that would have been just the greatest experience.
I don't. I didn't play it when it came out, so I don't. I don't. And I didn't even see it played when it
hmm
came out. I don't even know what it was like, but I think it's evolved in better ways, probably. Like most
It
games,
has.
I think it's like the features that have it. I would say it's probably better. If I just had to guess, I don't know.
hmm
I don't know.
Like it has like an update. Every year the developers has stated they want to do an update 2 times a year, and it's definitely propelled it forward. I kind of like I hate imagining a world where Minecraft doesn't exist or where Minecraft where basically the last update comes out because this game is just it's amazing. It's got the best community, the best developers, you know. Like this isn't just something that's it releases and then it's over, it's not like Assassin's Creed or like any of the numerous games out there.
Mm-hmm.
It updates frequently. There's always new content. The developers are always asking, what can we put in the game? They listen to the community. It's I'm going on a tangent here,
No, it's
but
fine.
it's really the greatest thing ever.
It's fine. I mean, it's something you love, and other people love it too, and
hmm
it's always
Yeah.
great to hear people talk about the things they love. It's great. Have you always been creative like this? Like when you were younger, were you always creative?
Yeah. Yeah, especially when I figured out Minecraft existed. I would spend hours on my Xbox 360 just playing this game, building things, doing things, and then I would log off. And, when I was a kid, I didn't write as much, but as I've gotten older, I would get off this game and then go write.
What? How old were you when you decided you were going to take writing a little more seriously? Do you remember?
Probably towards the end of my high school like career.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was like 18 at the time. I'm like getting into college. I'm like, I want to make writing a career. I want to, I don't want to just have a job. I want to have a hobby. I want to be able to like go to sleep at night with a smile on my face, knowing that, yeah, I'm making money, but I'm making money doing something I love.
Mm.
I know everyone has
Yeah.
that dream, but I am really persistent in it. I really want to make writing my career.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can do it. I mean, realistically, like if you work hard
Yeah.
and you take criticism well, which is, I mean, you already have an editor, so like that helps you learn how to
hmm
take criticism. So I mean, you can definitely get there. You can definitely get there. When you're sitting down reading books, are you analyzing them? Are you looking at what people are
No.
doing?
No, like
Like how
I
quickly
don't
you said
like
that.
people say, I sit down and I analyze this book. This is one reason why I don't write reviews is because I have trouble like pinpointing what I didn't like or what I liked about a book
Sure.
because I just go book. I just go through it and I like to say that I drown myself in books because I own almost let's see, I think almost 70 books with
Wow.
more on the way. So, I want to read and I don't want to like sit there and ask myself, what did I like about this character? I just want to read.
Sure. No, I get that, and for anyone out there listening, I don't think people should leave negative reviews. I understand the argument for them, but me personally, I'm only going to leave positive reviews. If I don't like something, I'm just not going to
Mm-hmm.
leave a review. But
Yeah.
but and I don't mean necessarily analyzing like what you like about the character, but like just like picking up writing technique, I guess is the word to say it. Like you notice a paragraph is written well. Do you ever just like read it again to be like, oh, I understand how they did this?
I definitely, as I go through things, some things will like come to my mind, like let's see, what example can I give here? Like for example, Mara Grant, aka Shannon McGuire's Newsflesh series. I found it, I figured I really liked how that's written. I really liked how the storyline flows wonderfully. Um, and I kind of took note a few things here and
Mm-hmm.
there. I'm like this character. This is how Sean Maguire characterizes the main character. This is how Sean Maguire ends the book, and this is why it kind of left me like wanting to just like throw the book out the window because it was so good. The ending was so good. I won't spoil it, but
It's okay.
tissues were on hand.
So, um, so when you sit down to write a story, I want to jump back to your stories. Are you just get an idea and you write, or like how do you
Yes.
decide what scene you're writing?
I just go whatever feels right. You know, if I don't like something, there's a backspace button for a reason. I just,
Yeah.
I delete it, then I rewrite it. I just kind of go with whatever I feel like. I get, like there are authors will say, my characters like speak to me, or like, I get like impressions, like my character, like I'll get this impression of a character or a plot line, and I just kind of chase that.
Okay. Do you write? Do you just write until you get stuck, or do you think it out?
I
Do you think
write,
out a lot?
I
Before?
write until I feel like there is an end.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess you're writing short stories, so it's a little different, but okay, that makes sense. Hey, bud. Sorry, my dog. He just woke up. Um, when you're, I'm trying to think how to phrase this. Like when you're playing games, when you're reading, are there any ideas that come to you from those things? And you're like, this would be cool in a book. Obviously, I need to shake it up a little bit. But
Mm-hmm. I'll use this as an example. Tara Sim's Timekeeper, I felt like that was a really good story about like the idea of time being like alive, like this essence that time is something physical that we can like touch, and that idea eventually transcended into like it transcended into the story that I didn't really publish to coffeehouse writers because I want to expand on it
sure.
before, but like this idea of maybe some emotions having physical embodiments. And I mean, I know that's not exactly the most original idea, but like you suddenly feeling like intense anger, and then that anger manifesting it into like this person or this being. Like I've had that idea.
Sure. And there are other authors who have done it. There's movies, but
yeah.
But the thing is, like,
Inside Out comes to mind.
Yeah, that one. Exactly. I couldn't think of the name of it. That's exactly what I was thinking of. But Brandon Sanderson, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but
I've read a couple of his works. Yes.
Oh, he's so good. But he has a writing lecture series, and in it, part of it, he says like, there's like no original ideas, so like everyone has done everything before. Really, doggies?
We're just all copying off of each other.
Well, that, but also like you're gonna do it in a unique way. So like, yeah, the emotion thing has been done before, but when you sit down, you can tweak it to make sure it's not exactly like Inside Out. But
yeah.
But the story's gonna be unique when you write it.
Mm-hmm.
And so.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to encourage you there because, like you said, it's been done before. But yeah, but it's gonna be different when you do it. It's gonna be unique. And I think that's the great thing about all writers to me is like if you and I had the same prompt, we would write two completely different stories.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
Yes, it is. I mean, it also kind of helps that like we have a bunch of works to draw from. Like, the public domain exists. There's tons of work out there that for example, Robin Hood. You can find like 1,000 different stories of like retellings of that just one very like legend or like myth that like we don't know if Robin Hood ever existed. We don't think he existed. We don't really have any concrete proof. And that's one of the reasons why I like the public domain and stuff. You can certainly draw on ideas from the past, and when those ideas are given to the public, the public is obviously going to make them their own,
Of course. Of course, and I think that's a good way to view that as well.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh. Let me take my doggies outside the room real fast. They're about to wrestle. It's going to get loud.
All right.
Come on, dogs. Come on. Sorry. I have two Shebas, like the little fox-looking dogs.
Hmm. Oh,
Yeah, they're really
they're
cute.
adorable.
But
I have
they're
a cat, and he's currently sleeping in a box right now, and I'm hoping he stays asleep because he likes walking all over my
oh
laptop.
yeah, that's a normal cat thing. Shebas are like very vocal
Hmm.
dogs, and which is great. But when they wrestle, it's just mayhem. It's
Yeah.
just mayhem. Uh, what kind of cat do you have?
He's an orange tabby cat.
Okay, awesome. Um, how many hours a day does he sleep?
Uh, wait, what was that question?
How many hours a day does he
Sorry, I'm trying to
sleep?
plug in. A lot.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to plug in my
No, it's okay.
laptop right now. Um,
It's okay. I can wait.
yeah.
All the
I
all the
lost the
viewers
first battery.
watching are just enjoying the view of your library there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Have you read Jim Butcher's The Aeronaut Windlass series?
I have not.
So it's like a
I
steam
read a lot, but
sorry.
yeah.
It's like a steampunk series. I don't know if you're into steampunk. If you are, it's a fantastic. Anyone out there, it's a fantastic series. But I only bring it up because he has talking cats in it, and I just didn't know if you watched it or
Hmm.
not because like he nails like cat
I
personality
have not.
perfectly.
But that sounds like a really interesting series that I really should be
Yeah,
reading.
you should read it if you like steampunk
Um,
and you like
hmm.
talking cats. He nails the personality of cats so well.
Yeah.
There's humans too, but then there's talking cats.
Hmm.
Uh, I would definitely recommend it. It's very good. It's very good. Are you reading a lot of? I'm trying. I want to make sure I say this correctly because it's not fairy tales, but like mythological stories that are in the public domain. Like, is that? Are you reading
Hmm.
a lot of those? Like you mentioned King Arthur or Robin Hood.
Um, Not really, because I do kind of have trouble sitting down and reading works from like other time periods.
Mm.
I find that I'm more willing to sit down and read something that's been published like in the last like 50 years because I find that like I don't like wanting to have to like stop after reading a sentence and be like, what did this just say? You know?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. In writing and language has just changed. Like writing, like literally the skill of writing has changed. And I totally do that.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I like reading that old stuff. I read a lot of like early church works, like from like the first couple centuries.
Mm-hmm.
But I know when I sit down, this is what I'm going to read. I'm going to be looking up words. I'm going to be trying to figure it out. Whereas like
Yeah.
I think it's different because like if I'm sitting down to read a fictional book, I want it to just be a quick read, or not quick, but I want to be able to sit down and just read it, and not have to look up all the words.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I totally understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I've certainly like um I did at one point read the like Alice in Wonderland. You know, I was like,
Like the original one.
well, okay, it was like yeah, I guess. It was a Penguin classic. You know what I mean? It was in like a hardcover book I found at my library when
Okay.
I was in middle school. I did manage to sit down and read that. You know, like with any, it is. I think it's part of the public domain, so it's been like republished over and
Sure.
over, and so there's probably a few elements of it that's probably been changed. So, but I did manage to read it.
How similar was it to this the story of Alice in Wonderland that you know?
Pretty similar.
Is it?
Pretty similar. Yeah.
I didn't know how much they changed in it.
Like in the movies and stuff, like in the book, she's more of a really naive, like innocent girl, but in the movies, they don't really capture that as
Mm.
well. They don't capture like her childness, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Mm.
Like her being like a child.
Sure.
Like I don't see that in a lot of movies, but that could also just be me.
Interesting. I think I think there's a little bit of it in the movie, but there's so much happening.
Yeah.
That yeah, I don't think it highlights it very well, just because there's so much going
No.
on.
Yeah. And I mean, when it comes to like making books into movies, there's obviously going to be. Hang on, my cat's awake.
It's okay.
Okay.
It's
Okay,
okay.
he's away now. Um, there's obviously going to be some elements that like are kind of missing from the movies.
Of course. Um, you watch you watch TV shows? You watch movies? I mean, I asked that.
Mm,
Everyone watches
not
movies.
as frequent as I do too. I do like I was wanting to go see Wonder Woman 1984.
Mm-hmm.
That's not happening.
It's not happening, unfortunately.
I watched, it's kind of select, like I'll hear about movies and then, if I think they're interesting, if I think they have a good premise, I'll go watch them. I've seen every DC movie because I do read comic
Okay.
books very infrequently. Um,
I like how you said that.
Comic
Very
books are really
infrequently.
great.
I love how you said that.
Yeah, like I do, like I have 2, 3 series that I'm reading like right now. Like I have subscriptions to them, but like I don't get into like, you know, comic events or anything. Like I'll read, for example, Tom King's Batman run. I read like issue 50. Because I heard it was an anniversary issue, so I was like, okay, I'll read it. If something piques my interest, I'll read it. But it's like I don't really have time, and I'm like, I
Right.
can't let myself go down rabbit holes. I have to, do things.
Yeah. No, I get it, and I kind of mentioned it earlier. That's like part of that drive that you have. It's like you've only
Mm-hmm.
got so much time. Obviously, with work and school, those take up a lot of your time. So then you have a smaller window of time that you have available to you, and what are you going to do with it? And yours is you're very,
Yeah.
very clear what you want to do.
Yes.
That that's incredible, especially for someone who's
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3 years into college. I mean, most people don't have that, so that's really cool. That's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely do try though to make time to, to look at my other interests. Like for example, I did go to see Wonder Woman.
Hmm.
If when it came out,
Did you
I
enjoy
wasn't
Wonder
super
Woman?
busy as I was. Huh?
Did you enjoy Wonder Woman?
What was that? Yes, very much.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it very much. I felt like it was like Patty Jenkins. Gal Gadot is the best Wonder Woman of
Yeah,
our
she's fantastic.
generation.
She was
I
fantastic.
can't imagine anyone playing. Yeah, they picked the right actor. Um, and sometimes looking at my interests, like when I went to see Wonder Woman, there's a moment in the film that like you see it in the trailers. She busts in on a bunch of like Germans. I think they're Germans, and then there's this music that plays in the background. I bought that track that from the
Okay.
soundtrack, that score. I really liked it. There's like a part of it like throughout the movie. There's this overarching music, like with any movie, but in the middle of it, in that specific scene, they play her theme that you heard in a previous movie, and it's like these like it's an electric cello. In the way the track is, it gets you like excited and stuff, and I really sometimes chasing my interests outside of writing, I'll get inspired, and I was certainly inspired by that movie.
That's really cool. I didn't know that. That's
Mm-hmm.
really cool to know. What
Yeah.
what are some of your other interests that you're out there doing?
I really like superheroes. Like I
Okay.
said, I do read comics sporadically. I do watch movies every now and then. Um, I like anything that like it piques my interest. I can't really tell you specifically
Sure.
why I like watching superhero movies or why I like reading comics. I do. I watched this show called The Bold Type. I have no idea why I like it. No idea at all. I just know I like it. I watch it. It's really good. Um, and as I said, I do play Minecraft.
Sure. Yeah, in superheroes, I've gotten in a discussion with people multiple times. I mean, that could be an hour to 2 hour long conversation about unpacking why
Oh,
superheroes are
definitely.
interesting, right?
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
you write a lot, you read a lot. how do you keep your mind from wandering? What when you sit down and
I
read? Like,
don't.
you say you don't?
I don't. Yeah, to be honest, I'll be in the middle of reading maybe a chapter, and I'm like, I think I just read the this paragraph like twice.
Yeah.
You know, I don't like. I'm very. I know myself. I know that when I get distracted, I need to maybe take a step back,
Mm.
or else I'm gonna get into the like I can't force myself to do things. I've learned that. I said I like if I found that I'm reading a paragraph twice, I definitely step back.
That's interesting.
You know.
And I think you said something that's really important is like you know yourself. Like you know this is how
Mm-hmm.
you act when that's happening when your mind's drifting, you're reading this paragraph 2 3 times and you still are not really paying attention. You take a step back. I think that's really important because like a lot of people don't really pay attention to how they function.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good. Do you get grumpy when you don't write?
Yes.
Yeah, I do too.
I become a mess.
I do too.
When I was in high school, while I wasn't writing a lot in high school, I could definitely tell like when I wasn't writing, like when I felt like I needed to sit down and like just get my thoughts on a paper. My
Yeah.
friend, she like my friend in high school one day, she's like, Scarlet, what's going on? And I'm like, what do you mean what's going on? It's like, you've been zoned out for the entire week. We've like barely spoken. I think you've said like 2 words to me in the past hour. And I'm like,
Mm.
have I? And she basically just like, what's going on? I'm like, I honestly just told her, I'm like, I haven't been writing.
Mm. And then you start writing and things start clicking back together.
Yeah. Yeah. I think writing is just a way for me to like acknowledge that like I still am human and I still need to, participate in society. Like if I don't write, I'm like not human.
Yeah. Well, it's clearly ingrained into you. Like this is it's part of who you
Mm-hmm.
are. It's clearly that. How do you keep the story straight? Do they ever get confusing? Like, because you're reading so much,
No,
you're
like
writing
I
so
don't.
much.
Um, I don't like I said, I don't really plot anything out. I will make note of certain characters and maybe I'll make note of certain world building that I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
But when I sit down to write, it just flows. I don't really acknowledge it until it's over, and I go back through it. And I don't know how it happens. It just nothing ever is confusing about when I write. I don't ever think, oh hey, this is kind of confusing. Maybe to me, maybe I need to reiterate it. No, it just kind of, I don't know.
Mm.
It just kind of flows.
So that's a gift. Um, do you have writing exercises you do? Is there anything you do to like warm up, or you just dive in?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely sometimes I'll take 30 minutes. I have like a notebook. I like writing more on my computer, but sometimes taking a step back, turning off my laptop, especially before bed, and writing on like an actual paper.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped writing with pencil a while ago. I got like I found I like erasing stuff. So I bought erasable pens,
Mm.
which are actually really cool. So I'll just sit down for like 30 minutes and write with my pen and just go at it, just kind of chase a plot line or something that's kind of going on.
That's interesting.
I do also like keep a journal, so sometimes, when I feel like I'm having like a difficult day, when I feel like I'm trying to write something but nothing's just coming, it's just
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just smashing my keyboard. I will typically just take out my journal, write for like 10 minutes and go back to what I was doing.
Do you find that helps get over that block?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like, as I said before, it's like really important for like a writer, or just anybody to like really know themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, I know that like when I get distracted, maybe there's something else going on. Maybe I feel like, like for example, the pandemic, I found that like thinking about it became like it was taking up headspace, and I would sit down to write, and I'm like, why can't I write? And I'll take out my journal and somehow through that process, I'll figure out, oh, hey, this is distracting me. So.
Yeah, I think that's happening to a lot of people. Like when something this severe, like the pandemic hits, it takes a, as you said, headspace. Like you have to think about it. You can't not think about it. Like
Mm-hmm.
in North Carolina, there's a
Yeah.
law right now where like you have to wear a mask outside. It's law. So that means
Mm-hmm.
like every time you
Yeah.
walk outside, you notice, you see people wearing masks, and you can't not think of it.
Yeah. I find just ignoring things. Whose idea was that? Why? Like I've said before, you can't run from your problems. You can distract from your problems, but eventually your problems are going to catch up to you.
Yeah.
And I think taking the time to sit down and acknowledge this is a problem is very like therapeutic and very soothing.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. Um, I've had a great time chatting with you. Uh, we've done
Mm-hmm.
over an hour. So I do want to, yeah, I
Yes.
do want to go ahead and wrap this up. But I think you're clearly, you have a goal in mind that you want to get to, and you're clearly going there. And I think that's great.
I do.
Uh, I do want to encourage you. I think that's great. Keep at it. Uh, there's obviously going to be hurdles along the way for anyone trying to do anything. Anyone trying to accomplish a
Mm.
dream, there's going to be hurdles, regardless of what it is. But clearly, I think you have the drive that you're going to get there. So I would encourage you to keep going. Don't give up. Keep going. Keep writing. Keep putting out the stuff you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like if I can give advice to anyone, it's just keep going. Just like take the doubts that you have in your head and just put them in a box and then put that in a box and just keep putting them in boxes until eventually those doubts are nothing but just a tiny whisper.
Mm.
Because, I've struggled, definitely to sit down and write because, I've doubted myself. Everyone has doubted themselves. You're not alone in doubting yourself. You're not alone. There's just know yourself, know what's bothering you, know that there's always some way to release that like energy, and know that like you are definitely not alone in your struggles.
Yeah, that's good advice. And
Speaking of struggles, hi Kat. Are you? Yes, I know.
yeah.
Please go away.
And something to add to that, like you gotta like people out there, like you have to know yourself, but then you also have to like be honest with yourself, like admit like, yeah, maybe I'm
Mm-hmm.
having a bad day, maybe I'm upset. Like you have to admit it. It's
Yeah.
one thing to know yourself, but you also can't lie to yourself. Like you have to admit it. Um, you've been great. I've definitely like I skimmed some of your stories. I started reading some, and they're interesting. You have a lot of different stories out there on Coffee House Writers. Also, link on your website. I'll put both of them below in the description. Keep writing. Keep putting out your content. Keep working on your books. Um, you keep working.
Mm-hmm.
You'll definitely get to where you want to be. So, thanks for being here. I appreciate you being here, Scarlett.
Yeah.
Check her out on
Thanks for
Twitter.
having me.
Check her out on Twitter. Check out her everything online. Anything you want to say before we go?
Um. Don't lie to yourself, people. Just don't do it.
Yeah.
It's pointless.
Yeah. Good advice.
And
Yeah.
Mhm.
Good advice. Everyone, check out her writing. Check her out on YouTube, on Twitter, like I said. But definitely go check out Coffee House Writers and read up on a bunch of cool stuff. Thanks for watching, everyone. You have a good day. Bye. See you next time.
do. Bye.